Welcome to Episode 8. In this video, we explore decision trees, models that don't just draw lines, but ask questions to categorize data. We'll examine how they grow, why they can overfit, and how random forests use a committee approach to fix this. Here is our roadmap. We'll start by comparing trees to linear models, then dive into the mechanics of tree growth, look at the dangers of overfitting, and finally, discover how forests solve these issues to create a more robust model. By the end of this video, you will be able to read a decision tree as a nested flowchart, explain why forests are more effective than single trees, and use feature importances safely, keeping in mind the difference between influence and causation. So far, our models have relied on drawing straight lines, or hyperplanes, to divide data. While this often works, real-world data is complex, with curves and thresholds. It's time to meet a model that behaves differently. It asks questions. You are likely already familiar with decision trees without realizing it. Think back to your manual churn flowcharts. Now, a machine learning model does the same, but it discovers the rules from data, uncovering patterns you might have missed. The core power of this model is that it writes its own flowchart. However, there is a catch. If the tree is too deep, it acts like a student who memorizes every answer rather than learning the logic, which leads to poor performance on new data. How does a tree grow? Imagine your data as a mixed pile of customers. The tree's job is to find the single best question that splits that pile into purer, more distinct groups. The goal is to increase purity. A good question sorts your data so that one side becomes more uniform. The tree tests various candidate questions and selects the one that provides the most significant jump in purity for the root split. Once the first split is made, the process repeats recursively on each resulting group. The algorithm continues to ask, what is the best question I can ask this group, until it hits a stopping criterion, like a depth limit or pure leaves. In summary, a tree decomposes a population. Each branch represents a rule, turning the logic into an understandable series of if-else statements, and every final leaf represents a prediction based on the majority class of that specific subgroup. To implement this, use the decision tree classifier from scikit-learn. Keeping your tree shallow is crucial for readability and preventing overfitting. If you plot your tree, you should be able to read it and verify that it matches your expected business logic. But what happens if we remove the depth limit? The tree will grow indefinitely, achieving near 100% accuracy on the training data. However, as we've learned, this is a sign of overfitting. The tree is simply memorizing the training set. An unlimited tree essentially becomes a lookup table, carving a unique path for every single data point. When you evaluate this, you'll see a massive gap between training and test accuracy, confirming the model has failed to generalize. Controlling this complexity is where the depth dial comes in. Too shallow leads to underfitting. Too deep leads to overfitting. Finding the right balance is the key to a good model, though we'll soon see how to solve this without needing the perfect depth. This brings us to the beauty of the random forest. By training many trees on different subsets of data and features, each tree becomes wrong in its own unique way, and their errors cancel out, resulting in a much more accurate, generalizable model. This mechanism is the central limit theorem in action. Just as averaging noisy sample means converges to the truth, averaging slightly wrong tree predictions allows the true signal to emerge, while the noise cancels out. To ensure these trees stay independent, random forests use two forms of randomness: bootstrap sampling, where each tree sees a different resampled dataset, and feature subsampling, which forces trees to explore different combinations of features. Fitting a forest is straightforward with scikit-learn. We set a number of estimators, usually around 200, to create our committee. You'll notice the train-test gap shrinks significantly compared to that overfit, unlimited single tree. There is a trade-off, however. While the forest delivers superior accuracy, we lose the simplicity of a single readable flowchart. A committee of 200 members is much harder to audit than a single depth 3 decision path. We regain some visibility through feature importances. By tracking which features were most useful for splits across all 200 trees, we get a ranked list of influence, though this requires careful interpretation. Visualizing these importances reveals which factors drive the model's decisions. Features like recency or trend ratios often dominate, which helps validate that the forest is focusing on the right signals identified in earlier work. Remember these two caveats. First, importance is not causation. It only measures utility for prediction. Second, correlated features split the credit, meaning a low score doesn't necessarily mean the feature is useless. Use this table to guide your analysis. Importances tell you what the model used, but they can't determine cause and effect or justify blindly dropping variables. Always check correlations before assuming a feature is irrelevant. Ultimately, we compare our models fairly using the same data. The random forest usually hits that sweet spot of high accuracy and reasonable generalizability, providing the strong baseline performance we need for our churn pipeline. You might hear about XGBoost or other boosting models. They are cousins to the forest that build trees sequentially to fix errors. While powerful, they are beyond our current scope. Master the random forest first. To recap, trees act as discoverable flowcharts. Forests use the central limit theorem to make these trees robust, and feature importances provide a helpful, though limited, lens into what the model has learned. Today's work connects directly to our previous modules. We've bridged the gap from manual flowcharts to bootstrapping and overfit diagnostics, landing firmly on the random forest as our primary tool for predictive modeling. Your final task is to complete the Tree versus Forest notebook. These exercises will provide the evidence you need to select the right model for the capstone project. The assignment includes 5 steps: growing the depth 3 tree, diagnosing the deep tree, fitting your forest, building the model comparison table, and writing your final recommendation memo. For the English sentence task, extract the most frequent branch from your depth 3 tree. Translating that logic helps you prove you understand the rules your model is actually using to categorize your customers. The final task is a recommendation memo. You need to structure it honestly. Name your chosen model, cite the evidence from your test scores, and acknowledge the trade-off. It's about being clear and transparent with your stakeholders. Looking ahead, we'll cover cross-validation in Episode 9. You've been eyeballing your model performance so far, but next, we'll turn those comparisons into a disciplined process to ensure your results are real, not just a product of a lucky train test split. Keep this vocabulary table as a quick reference for the terms we've used, from tree depth and leaf nodes to bootstrap sampling and feature importance. Understanding these concepts is fundamental to mastering tree-based models. Remember the big idea. One tree asks questions, but 200 trees take a vote. Averaging those independent experts is a powerful principle that helps cancel out individual errors. It's a pattern you've seen throughout this course, and it works. You've successfully built and diagnosed your models, and your comparison table is ready. I look forward to seeing you in Episode 9, where we will make hyperparameter tuning a rigorous, professional discipline. This program was brought to you by the Series of Thoughts team and Technovative AI.